All right, y'all. Welcome into another episode of Back Porch Sports, now part of Tackler Media. And if you missed the first episode earlier this week, Jason Butt, John Michaels, and myself have started tacklermedia.com. We got Atlanta sports news. We got Southeastern sports news. We know sports are tentative at the moment, but there's still stuff to talk about. And we have stuff to talk about today with our guest, DJ Shockley, former Georgia quarterback, former Atlanta Falcons quarterback. He's got everything covered. He knows how to talk about any of this stuff. Sometimes you get guests on that only want to talk about college sports. Sometimes you get guys that want to talk about the NFL. But Shock can do it all. How you doing, DJ?
Good, man. I appreciate you guys having me on, and know all three of you guys pretty well, man. So I appreciate you guys having me on, and congrats on the new endeavor here.
Yeah, we're trying to do what we can, man. We're trying to do what we can in these trying times. So I think I just want to start off today. I know you had a meeting with Georgia's quarterbacks, and some of that stuff may be off the record, but what are you able to divulge about how that meeting went today?
Well, I'll be honest. It's kind of interesting how it all came about. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on in the country, a lot of things going on that are not right with our country, a lot of injustices going on, and a bunch of us as Georgia guys kind of came together and were trying to figure out a way that we could have a bigger voice, a way that we could kind of help the movement along. And it started with us getting together, having a bunch of conversations, having tough conversations about things that's going on, and it's between white guys, black guys, everybody just being able to have a free space to talk. And I hit up Kirby and asked him, hey, we would love to be able to have some of the current players involved. And we kind of set it up, and, we had a bunch of alumni guys talking to a lot of the players just about stuff that's going on in the world, any way we could help them. I thought it was very beneficial, and we actually enjoyed doing it. So basically just a chance to allow guys to speak freely, man. A lot of guys to get some stuff off the chest. And I think that's the best way to start it, is through conversation. And I'm sure all schools around the country have been doing similar things. We've seen PSA about a bunch of different people. And this was just our first way to try to get something going. And it just so happened we had some of the current players that we could kind of talk to and just start the conversation with, which was pretty cool.
Shock, what kind of conversations do you have? Because, it's easy to sit back as a former player and you see it from a different perspective than an 18 to 22-year-old sees it. How was the reception from some of them? Were they willing to actually sit there and talk, which I know a lot of people at that age, they want to stay quiet?
Yeah, and that's the part that when we went into it, we wanted to make sure we established that, hey, we pretty much guys who played 10, 15, some guys 20, 30 years ago. So we didn't want to come in like these old guys talking at the guys. We wanted to have a full conversation. And the first thing we talked about was having a free space. We talked about no judgment zones and all that kind of stuff. So they were really receptive, man. It was cool because a lot of guys had a bunch of questions. It was pretty cool. After the entire Zoom was over, JT Daniels, reached out to me. He had a couple questions he wanted to ask that he didn't answer on the Zoom question. Jamie Newman was really big in talking. Stetson Bennett was another guy who, kind of was very honest about some things he was, concerned with. So it was really good, really receptive. And it's something that we hope we can continue to do. But it's definitely something that I think is the good first step in the process of trying to have that conversation.
DJ, when you were playing, would these kind of conversations come up then? Were they encouraged by coaches, fellow teammates? How has that sort of changed now, in addition, where it seems like players have more power in this area than maybe ever before, even at the college level?
Well, I think when I played, there wasn't much talk about it. I'll be honest. It was probably within your own little clique, You had your group, your position groups, or you have guys you hang with on the team, and you talk about it. It's not as prevalent as it is now because I think it's so front and center. And everything is out in the open. You can't hide from it. And it's such a volatile topic now about all the injustice that's going on that you can't just straddle the fence. You can't say, hey, I'm just going to be a part of the shake your head generation and say, oh, man, that's tough. I'm sorry that's happening. Everybody has to have some kind of empathy. And the one thing that I always make a point of, hey, this is not a black thing. It's not a white thing. This is a everybody thing, because this is affecting everybody. And if you're angered or frustrated by what you saw on TV or those videos, then you should feel a certain way. And you shouldn't be sitting on one side of the fence or the other. You shouldn't be straddling. You should be, hey, this is right or this is wrong. And I think that's where the situation is now. So I think it's a lot different now because it's more out front and center than it was back when I played.
DJ, I think hearing you say that is great because in the industry that we're in, we're on social media a lot. And I think a lot of people have a choice about how much social media activity they want to consume. They have a choice about how much they want to be on it. But for guys like us, we kind of have to be on it to a certain extent to keep up with the things that are helping us in our careers. And I think an unfortunate byproduct of that is you see a lot of negativity. You see a lot of toxic interactions. But the important thing is like what you're doing, meeting at the level where you can actually affect people and talk to people and actually reach them. So what do you think the accurate mentality of these conversations are like the one that you had? Because I don't think the things that we see on social media by and large are an accurate representation of how people really want to get together on these things.
I think the number one thing people have to do is first, they got to have some kind of acknowledgement of something that's going on. And then I think the other part is you got to have some kind of perspective and some kind of understanding. And I think a lot of people, I've had tons of my white friends reach out and say, hey, man, I've never been in your shoes. I don't know what it's like to be you. And, I can understand that. But on the other hand, I say, what if this was your brother? What if this was your sister? What if this somebody who was really close to you? Then what would you want people to do? You want people to have empathy for you. You want people to stand with you. You want people to have a voice for you. And I think that reaches all people. And that's why I say the perspective has to change. People have to get outside of their normal little bubble of, okay, well, it didn't happen to me, so I'm not affected. No, it's affecting everybody. So I think the number one thing is you got to acknowledge that first off, there is issues. There are things that need to be talked about and handled, and then you got to change your perspective and mindset, because without that, there will be no change, because you will always stay in your road and stay right down that road that you're going on. But the only way is to create that change through changing your mindset and the perspective.
Shock, one of the things I've noticed through this, twofold. A, there's guys in the media. We've all been in the media for a long time. We have voices, but there are a lot of people that are afraid to use their voice. How much are athletes and everybody else keeping score of the guys that are real quick on Monday morning to judge somebody throwing a pass, not doing their part and stepping up? And the second part, how much do you see the negativity being a positive? Because for me, like, I lost over 1,000 followers speaking my mind, and I found that a good thing because it kind of cleansed all of the negativity that was on my timeline. Do you find that the more you speak, some of the people are moving away from kind of following what you have to say?
Which I love, and that's perfect, because that's kind of getting rid of all the people that probably were front runners, or people who you looked at, they probably thought a little bit differently, or probably was on the wrong side of things. And if people want to not follow you, or they want to talk bad about you because of your opinion of something you believe is right and speaking up for it, then I don't want those people. I don't want those friends. I don't want to be a part of something that's like that. And I love the fact that you are vocal about it. I've always known about you from day one, that you're going to keep it real. And that's what I respect the most. And I don't care if you played ball, you didn't play ball. And that's the other part about it is, if you're speaking it, then guess what? You're not afraid of the people who are just straddling the fence like we talked about earlier. This is not a time to be silent, because I think silence breeds confusion. Because if I don't know where you stand, how do I know how I communicate with you? And that's the second part about it is I love the fact that people are starting to be out more outspoken. And then athletes are for sure looking at people who have some kind of clout, some kind of power, some kind of room to make change. And if they're not speaking, dudes are taking heed of that. And when time comes around and you want to, have an autograph, you want to, talk good about me, you won't get nothing from me.
DJ, this is with everything that's happened. I was speaking with Champ Bailey about this just last Friday, and we both kind of agreed that this is such an interesting time, in that it's not like these incidents haven't occurred in years past. It's just we're still right now, and there's no sports. There aren't really any distractions. Does that give you any wonder that, what if we had all these distractions? Would we be having these kind of intense conversations right now? And if so, is that frustrating at a certain level that it took the world to kind of shut down for us to have these kind of to have these discussions with one another?
Yeah, Jason, that's an interesting point, man, because for so long, we've always said sports has been the equalizer. It's been the thing that's brought everybody together. It made you think about the bad things that's going on in your life. And now you have no sports. Everything else of the world is front and center. Now you're forced to act on certain things that you probably wouldn't because of sports. So I love the fact that during this tough times where, things have happened that aren't good, but at the same time, there's some good things coming out of being in quarantine or not being able to have sports and all that kind of stuff. It's an excellent point. The fact that sports does hide a lot of things is tough too. A lot of people look at sports as that equalizer. And sometimes when you don't have the ability to separate one dynamic from another, like sports from things that's going on in the world, you lose sight of what's important. And I'm glad that right now we're starting to see things that are important, but these things have been going on for 400 years. These things have been going on for a long time. And now it's more coming to light because we're visualizing it. We're seeing it. People are at home. People are more focused on the things that's happening in the world because sports is no longer there. So, and the fact of you love sports for what it can do, but also love this point where it's forcing people to kind of look deep inside and have a different outlook on life.
What's your read on how Kirby Smart is leading this team right now? You mentioned that you brought up this moment to address the team this way with some other former players, but Kirby as a head coach, I know the pandemic was already taking a toll on him because he was trying to work out a little bit more. I heard him on the Feinbaum show talking about that. And now he has a really a linchpin moment like a lot of coaches do right now to lead their teams and really address another large issue in our nation right now. How's he leading the team right now? And what do you feel like his mindset is?
Well, I'll be honest, man. I've had a lot of conversation with Kirby over the last month about a lot of different topics. And I love the way he is leading his group. I'll be honest. His heart is in the right place. He even admitted that before all this stuff happened, he had no idea about certain things in the world that were going on. And now he's been more knowledgeable of the situation. And the fact that I think when a lot of stuff has happened, he has hit it head on. I'll give you guys one example, one thing that he's done and this is one of many things that he's done with his team already. But one thing that he did was he got his entire team registered to vote. How important is it to vote? I mean, think about it. When you were in college, I remember I was in college. I don't think I voted one time. I mean, we were 18 to 22-year-old. We were just worried about whatever was going on in college. But he made a point to make sure every kid was registered to vote, and they went down and did that. Now, he didn't tell them who to vote for. He didn't tell them different policies. He just wanted to make sure they had the right to register to vote, and all kids were there. And I think that's the first step into the knowledge part of it. There's so many other things you could be doing, and I think that was important because of what's going on in the world and how important it is to vote, that you get these kids understanding what it means to vote. And he mentioned having different people come in to talk about why you should vote, ways you should vote, things that you should do to get yourself mentally ready to vote. I mean, he's got this team and the direction, I believe, off the field going in the right way, and it only leads to better things on the field. But Kirby has definitely done an outstanding job so far, just from the things I've known that he's implementing with his team to make sure there's no divide and to make sure that these issues are front and center.
Let's switch to the Falcons before we wrap up with you real quick, DJ. Like you said, man, like the early part of this whole lockdown has been, I think if you address it within yourself, we all had times to address some things within ourselves. The second part of it with the injustice being brought to the forefront in America in a way that it really hadn't been within our lifetimes gives us all a chance to address how we're treating other people and to get rid of the hate and get rid of the ignorance that we've chosen to have or been okay with. And now you can't be okay with it because it's been called out on the carpet. And I think what Matt Ryan has done in his spot his role as a quarterback with the Falcons. I just wanted to get your thoughts on how Matt has addressed his advancing the lives movement. He spoke a lot about it earlier this week on 680, and just the impact that can have in a locker room.
You know what? I think all three of us know Matt really, really well. We've all been around him at one time or two. Obviously, I played with him a few years and know exactly what kind of guy he is. And this is a moment where it doesn't surprise me. It is a moment that when I saw him come out with this initiative, I thought this was the type of thing Matt would do. Using his platform, using his voice, using the things that have made him successful, which is football, but also he made a lot of money in this game, but he also understands he hasn't done it without the guys around him, and those guys around him have been affected. I love the fact that he put forth his own money. Dan Quinn was a part of it. He donated money. I mean, this is an incredible thing that he's doing to try to bring awareness and then also to start the initiative. And where it starts with most of the time is money. And for a guy like Matt Ryan to have the platform he has, he could easily sit back and be a part of the shake your head generation and just kind of talk to his teammates. But instead, he's taking this on a global scale, which is pretty awesome and pretty cool to see. So I actually, when he did it, I hit him up and we talked for a good little while, and I was just glad to call him a friend for the things that he was doing. So I'm excited about where he's taking it and wanting to be part of the action as well as speaking it out in the public.
Shock, I got to end this, or at least my last question, on a fun note. I saw you and Miss Portia celebrated 11 years this past week, so congratulations on that. How much are you ready to get out of the house with all the quarantine to not have to deal with all the honey-do list? Because Lord knows I have been ready to get out of my house. I've done yard work. I've been fixing washing machines. I've done things that I've never done in my past.
Dude, me and my neighbor, we got like all kind of stuff we've been doing. My neighbor's more of a fix-it kind of guy, and I've helped him put up a retaining wall in the play set. I got to rebuild my deck. I got all kind of stuff that I got to do. And of course, with the idle time, my wife is on her iPad and she's looking up stuff, and I'm like, we got to get it done. So I'm with you, man. I'm ready to get out the crib. My little guy and my daughter, they're always looking for different activities. As you know, with kids, you're trying to find something for them to do. But it's been cool, man, to sit back and be able to enjoy it because, as you know, during the fall, we're hardly ever at home. But I think it's been long enough, yeah.
DJ, got to get a football question in there for you. When it comes to these Georgia quarterbacks, JT Daniels and Jamie Newman, what do you see going forward in this competition, assuming we do have a season this fall to watch?
I love the competition. I think that's something that Kirby has instilled in his program since day one, that he wants quality competition at every single position, and he wants the best at every single position. So getting JT Daniels, I thought, was a huge get because it gives a lot of competition with Jamie Newman, but it also would make that first defense or first or second defense a lot better, because in practice, usually the twos goes against the ones goes versus the two, and there's a big drop-off. But now you have a guy who's played in some big-time football games. He understands college football, and he's going to bring it every single day. But on the other hand, Jamie Newman, I think, is the real deal. I think he is going to surprise a lot of people. He has an arm to make every single throw on the field. You already know he's athletic. He's built to last. He's 230 pounds. Talking to Kirby, he said he's ripped to a T. So I remember looking up some stats on him. Last year at Wake Forest, he carried the ball 180 times. Now, a lot of that, sometimes maybe a scramble here and there, but that's a lot of time. And that tells you he's built and he can hold on to it. So this competition is going to be huge. I remember when I was on the call with them, they had 7 QBs in the room. So they have tons of guys in the room for competition. And guys going to be fighting for reps. Every single day is going to matter. And that's what matters the most, is that competition. But I love Jamie Newman. I think he's going to be a bright spot for Georgia. His offense is going to look a little different than we've seen it in the past, but for good, though, I think. A lot of stretching the field, a lot of more vertical throws, and bringing in the RPO with him, pulling down and running is going to be a huge part of the offense as well.
Kirby runs that QB room a little bit different, man. It's like he runs it like a running back room. Like you get as many people in as you can and see who lasts. To the Falcons with Dirk Cutter kind of getting back in the swing of things last season. And now he's got Todd Gurley in the arsenal. Gurley passing his physical a couple weeks ago. What are you expecting to see from Dirk Cutter's offense, and how much stock should we put in Gurley running around in Atlanta this year?
I don't think anybody knows, man. I think the last couple of years he's been used differently. Obviously, the big question mark was, his health, and he passed the physical. Just want to see how long he's going to last. I think that's the biggest part for Todd Gurley. But when he's on, he's one of the best in the league, and we know that. Big physical back, can catch out the backfield, and we know how good Matt is with distributing the football. That's going to be fun to watch this offense. I don't know how many teams have 3, 4, 5 different DBs that can cover what the Falcons have. Bringing in Hayden Hurst at tight end is going to be a huge get as well. You lose Austin Hooper, who was a big-time player for him last year, but you bring in just a good player. I think Hayden Hurst, athletic, can run, will be good in the red zone. And we know what Julio Jones looks like every single year. We know he's going to bring it. So this is going to be an offense that looks going to be fun to watch.
When you look around that division, you see Tom Brady, you see Drew Brees, you see Matt Ryan. How bad does Teddy Bridgewater have to feel right now when he sees those three guys?
He got to know every week he got to bring it. I mean, you got 3, future Hall of Famers, NFC South. So it's going to be fun to see that group go at it. The NFC South may be the best, conference in the league. I mean, the QB play alone is going to make it tough for anybody to beat them week in and week out. And having Breeze, having Brady, having Ryan, who puts up the numbers every year, is going to be fun.
All right, DJ Shockley, thank you for joining us, man. You got any lessons? What have you learned about fatherhood, man? I got a 5-month-old at home, and I'm not running around quite to the extent that you are. But like John said earlier, man, there is a lot more time on our hands. So leave us with some fatherly wisdom before we wrap.
Dude, patience. You got to have patience with kids, bro. That's all I'm telling you. It's going to be some ups, some downs. It's going to be some frustrating moments, but you're going to love it, man. Ain't nothing like being a dad. Ain't nothing like you come in the house, your kids running up to you, yelling, "Hey, Daddy." It's one of those moments that it feels better than any touchdown I ever throw. Trust me, it's going to be the best thing in the world. It's still going to be times when you got to be patient, but you'll love it, man. It's not many people can have the honor of saying, "Hey, I'm a dad," which is pretty cool.
Shock, the best moment I can remember, and I've had a lot of them with Kane, Falcons go to the Super Bowl, and, we leave there, the euphoria being in the Georgia Dome, and I come home, and he's decked out in Falcon gear, and he comes and hugs me and goes, "Dad, we're going to the Super Bowl." Awesome. I'll never forget that. It's the best moment ever.
Nothing like it, man. I've had a couple moments like that myself, and you just know they hear the garage come up and you can hear the patter of feet, man. It's a pretty cool moment, man. So enjoy it, Wes, man. It's gonna be some good times. You have a lot of great memories, bro.
That's good stuff. Thank you so much, DJ. Appreciate your time. Y'all follow DJ Shockley on Twitter for his football insight and Southeastern Sports Insight. Subscribe to Tackler at tacklermedia.com for more content like this, more written pieces, more podcasts, more videos. And y'all have a great weekend. Make it great for somebody else as well. We'll catch you next week.